Hello, welcome to the Vibrant Health Show, where we are going to talk all about sun-safe tips because it's summer. Hopefully where you are, it's getting nicer weather. So we need to discuss, I do this every year around this time because it's so important to know what is the safest way to protect your skin, right? There's so much differing opinions out there, so many different opinions. I'm going to set it straight today for you guys and give you some good tips. So feel free, as always, to ask questions in the comments. I'll keep checking, or I'll come back if you're watching the replay or watching later on YouTube. Or if you're listening after the fact, please continue to ask questions and I'll come back. But let's dive right into it. So the very first thing that we absolutely have to cover when it comes to sun safety is sunscreen. There is such a large debate out there. You have people who are avid highest SPF sunscreen all the time people. You have some people that say no sunscreen ever. Where's the truth, right? Where does it fall? What's right? What's wrong? I'm going to teach you all of that today. What's good about sunscreen, what's not good about it, how to choose the best one, and then also what are sun safe practices you can do in addition to or in place of sunscreen when it's not necessary. So first off, it's important to know that as far as regulations go, there has not been an FDA update on sunscreen regulations since 2011. So we are way behind a lot of other countries who have already completely banned some of the main ingredients that you're going to find in your commercial sunscreens. So I am definitely opposed to using some of these really, big name brands, the really cheap sunscreens that have the bad ingredients. And I'll teach you what those are in just a second. Those we definitely want to avoid. But there are lots of safe alternatives because we also don't want to burn, right? We don't want to damage our skin. Unfortunately, I was unkind to my skin growing up. I don't feel like anyone really enforced for me that I should have protected my skin better. So also dealing with sun damage and those types of things, we'll go through it all. You want to make sure that you are protecting, but in a safe way that isn't also potentially causing more harm than good. So we definitely want to avoid the more toxic versions of those sunscreens, and we want to find good ones. So when it comes to sunscreens, there are really two main differences. There are your chemical-based sunscreens, and right off the bat, that doesn't sound great, but that's what majority of you guys are using, or the general population at least. Most people are using a chemical-based sunscreen. We really want to avoid those for multiple reasons. Number one, your skin is your largest organ. You are absorbing that into your body. And it has been shown that the chemicals in sunscreen will stay in your bloodstream for over 3 weeks after one use. So I've also heard people say, yeah, well, I use this bad one, but we're not in the sun that much. I probably only use it like once a week, so it's no big deal. If you use that sunscreen one time a week, it never metabolizes from your body. You have traces of these chemicals in your bloodstream every single day because it takes at least 3 weeks to get it out. So if you're using it more often than every 3 to 4 weeks, you are getting a buildup of chemical, and it's going to become important for you to find a safer one to transition it to. So I highly recommend you avoid them completely, but even just infrequent use, you're still getting a buildup of those chemicals in the bloodstream. The main chemicals you want to look out for, the top one is called oxybenzone. That's the one that has been outlawed in a lot of other countries, and it's still in a lot of the big name brands. Some of the other brands have started to get away from it because there's been a lot of research for this, but that's really the big one that we're trying to avoid. But there are multiple others in a chemical-based sunscreen that still aren't ideal. That specific one is really known to cause hormone disruption. It's known to cause potential cancers. It can create allergic reactions and eczema. It's been linked to endometriosis. It works like an estrogen in the body. We talk all the time about xenoestrogens and estrogen mimickers. Well, that oxybenzone or oxybenzene has several different names. Does that to your body. So for females especially, we definitely want to avoid that, but it's also been shown to reduce sperm count in men, to create testosterone imbalance and zap testosterone in both men and women. So there's a lot of negative effect. It's not just, oh, I use a sunscreen sometimes. It's directly impacting your endocrine system, which is a big deal. So we want to make sure we're avoiding those. And I'm going to read you a list, and don't feel like you have to remember all of these, because again, the goal is we're going to switch from a chemical-based sunscreen. So ideally you won't use any of them anymore, but the list of the main chemicals you want to avoid, the oxybenzone, or sometimes called oxybenzene, There's an avobenzone. There's an oxysilene. There's a homosalate. There's an oxysalate. And then there's one called octinoxate. Those are kind of the big ones. But anytime you see words like that, typically that's not a great thing, right? Those are all chemical based. And even if the big one, the oxybenzone, isn't in there, some of those other ones still are in this chemical based sunscreen. So we want to make sure that we're transitioning. So what is the better alternative? So there's two forms of sunscreen. You have your chemical based or you have your mineral based. That's what I highly encourage everyone to switch to, is a mineral based sunscreen. The mineral base has two main ingredients. Usually it's one or the other: zinc oxide or titanium dioxide. Those are the two ingredients that have been the most researched as far as efficacy, which means they will actually help block sun damage, and safety for actual use. They don't penetrate the skin near as much. They don't get in the bloodstream as much as the chemicals do. And even if they do, they are a safer compound for your body. One of the things I use a lot, and I encourage people to use, is the website from Environmental Working Group. A lot of people are becoming more aware of this site. I'm just going to check for comments. We use the ewg.org website often because you can go and rate any of the products that you're using. So if you have a sunscreen that you're using, go on ewg.org. They have their Skin Deep database that has all of these products loaded, and you can see on a scale of 0 to 10 how toxic is the product you're using. So the zinc oxide and the titanium dioxide, those based products rate really low, very low in toxicity. That's what you're looking for. So my general rule of thumb, if you're going to use the ewg.org, is to try and get a product that's a 2 or under. A 3 or over, I try and avoid fully. Ideally, some of the ones I'm going to mention to are a 0 or a 1. Those are ideal, but all the way up to a 2, you're probably safe. You're 80% better than the big stuff that you're likely using right now. So ewg.org, they have their database. Check what products you're using. And if it's a 2 or if it's above a 2, if it's a 3 or over, it's time to switch. You can do this with your makeup. You can do this with your hair products. You can do this with your fragrances that you use. So if there's anything you're questioning, highly recommend using that resource and trying to find something that's a 2 or under. So all the ones I'm going to share with you today are a 2 or under, and they're ones that we use often in my own house. So you're looking for a mineral-based, not a chemical-based. The other problem with these chemical sunscreens, and something I feel like has been really mistaught, is the concept of SPF, right? So everyone wants a higher SPF. The general recommendations are 30 or above. Most people now are choosing a 50. I even see there's ones coming out with 70 or 100 SPF. The problem with just looking for an SPF-based sunscreen is that really it only helps block the UVB rays and not your UVA rays. Now, the difference is UVB are the ones that go a little bit shallower into your skin. So they make more of the topical burn, right? That's what the burn you'll actually see, the discoloration on the skin. That is mainly created by UVB. So when you get a sunscreen that has a high SPF and it blocks UVB, yes, you're not getting the burn, the skin color change as much as you would without that. That's true, but it doesn't block the UVA at the same capacity, which is the spectrum that goes deeper into your skin and is actually known to cause even more of the long-term problems than the UVB. It can cause more cancers, it can decrease immune system function, it creates inflammation. Those UVA rays are the ones that you don't really see the effect immediately, but they're the ones that cause more problems long-term. So even though you've probably been told your entire life, make sure you're getting a good SPF, the truth is the SPF is not what you need. You need your sunscreen to say broad spectrum. That means it's going to help block both the UVB and the UVA rays, because if your SPF, and they're even showing now, the higher the SPF is actually worse because it's letting in more UVA, the more UVB you block. So your 70 and 100 SPFs, long-term damage, you're probably getting more of those UVA rays. So being really careful about that. But the good thing about mineral-based sunscreens and not chemical-based is majority of them are going to be broad spectrum. So you're going to get a reduction in both your UVA and your UVB rays. So making sure you're looking not only that it's mineral-based, but that it's broad spectrum. That's the other thing that you're looking for. And the third thing I always encourage you to look for is when you flip over your sunscreen, just like I teach you for food, supplements, anything you are consuming, putting on or in your body, you need to read the ingredients list and not just the active ingredients, right? Active ingredients is where you're going to see the zinc oxide, the titanium dioxide, that's great. But you also have to read your inactive ingredients. Are there things, so even in some mineral-based sunscreens, which is better, if you read the inactive ingredients, they can still contain things like parabens, PEGs, sulfates, propylene glycol, SLS, sodium lauryl sulfates. Those are all things that can still be in a mineral-based sunscreen if it's not a good quality. So not only do you need to check your active ingredient to make sure it's mineral-based and not chemical-based, your inactive ingredients, that should be a very clean list. A lot of times, the ones I'm going to suggest for you guys, the inactive list is things like aloe vera gel, and they have different, maybe there's some citrus extracts or different things to help protect and nourish the skin, but no additions of other chemicals, xenoestrogens, which we're trying to avoid, or things that create more inflammation. Because when you hear comments like the sun doesn't cause cancer, sunscreen does, although that's a pretty bold statement, the truth is a chemical-based sunscreen with a bunch of poor inactive ingredients will absolutely create immune system issues and potential cancers. That's a very true statement. However, I don't want you to go fry your skin and create long-term damage that way either. You got to find our happy medium, right? So to recap, what you do not want is a chemical-based. You definitely don't want any of those big chemical names that you can't pronounce, especially that oxybenzone, oxybenzoate. That's the biggest one that you're looking to avoid. But you really want to make sure you're getting mineral-based, which is going to be a zinc oxide or titanium dioxide. You're looking for broad spectrum, not just an SPF. And you want to make sure anything in that inactive ingredients list is something you feel comfortable putting on and in your body. So they should be all natural ingredients. We shouldn't have a bunch of additives and things in our sunscreen either, because again, it's going on your skin, which means it's getting in your body. So we want to be really intentional about what we're putting on and in our bodies. So mineral-based, and I'm going to give you some of my favorite brands. So there's a ton out there, probably way more than I'm going to mention today. The ones I chose are ones that are easy to find. Some other ones you have to make accounts for, you have to order different places. So I'm positive there's plenty of other ones. For the sake of simplicity, I picked ones I know you can find easily at the store, on Amazon. If you're in a pinch, if you're on vacation and you show up at the beach and you forgot your sunscreen, you're going to be able to find one of these at the store. So these are just simple and easy to use. The first one, and the one we use probably the most often, is Badger brand. Badger brand is mineral-based, it's broad spectrum, and if you read their inactive ingredients, they add no junk to it. I absolutely love how clean and how simple their products are. They have lots of different levels of broad spectrum coverage, everything from a 15 all the way up to a 50. So you can choose your broad spectrum, the amount of coverage that you want. They have kids versions. They have the face stick, which if you have kids, that's always the easiest way to try and get them to put it on. They have the cream version of it. I do also recommend, and this is just general, try not to get sprays, even if it's a mineral base, because for them to be able to emulsify it enough to be able to spray, they have to add some type of chemical to be able to get it to expel from the bottle. So even if the more natural ones have a spray version, I've recently just tried to avoid those even more, because when you read the inactive ingredients, typically they have a couple of additional ingredients added to make it sprayable. So even though I know it's more convenient, especially for full body, it is going to be safer and a better option if you don't get a spray. That's not the end of the world. If you have a spray one, use it up and then switch over. If you have a chemical one, I say throw it out. It's not even worth continuing to use. But I would, on your next purchase, go for the cream, go for the stick over the spray. Badger brand you can find anywhere. You can find it almost all stores now. They're on Amazon. You can get them at Target. Like, they're easy to find. So you're going to be able to find those. The one thing with the Badger brand, and not all the time can you find it in the store, is if you've ever used a mineral-based sunscreen before, sometimes they go on really white. You know what I'm talking about, right? Like zinc oxide under your eyes. Like if you're a sports person, it can go on really white. And most of the time, like on my kids, I don't really care, but sometimes I don't want my face to be all white or to have all that zinc oxide. So Badger brand does have a clear version that is still great, still mineral-based. They've just made it less white, that you're not so glowingly obvious that you have to put sunscreen on. So I choose the clear brand or the clear version as often as I can. If it's not available or we don't have it, on hand, I'll use the other ones, but there is a clear version. So if you don't want to be super, super white, you can do that one. So I would say for the whole family, Badger brand is my #1 recommendation. That one across the board is what we use the most often, works great, smells really good. They have really light, just essential oil fragrance to them. They don't add any chemicals or things to it. So I really like that one. The second one is easy to find. It's not my favorite for one reason. It does still contain something called dimethicone, which generally is not an ingredient that I love, but it's hard to find in a store. If you're in a pinch, the ideal ratios and ingredients for a sunscreen. So the second one is called Think Sport. They rate great on the EWG.org website. They're very low in toxicity. It's just that one ingredient I don't like as much. However, if you're there and you're like, I'm going to go with this super chemical toxic one, or the only other option I can find at CVS is Think Sport, I'm going to go with that one all day, every day. And I only mention it because it's probably the one you're going to see the most often. It is everywhere. You can find it anywhere. So that would be, if you can't find the Badger brand, Think Sport is going to be one you can find just about anywhere. Good option. I would just prefer Badger if I had the choice. The third one, and especially cost-effective wise, if you use Thrive Market, which is like a food and snack delivery service that they're like an online grocery store kind of, they have all the healthy options and they have lots of face care, body care, and all of that. They actually have their own. It's their Thrive Market brand mineral-based sunscreen. It is by far, it's probably about 30% less expensive than any of the other sunscreens. So if you have a big family or kids that go through it often, it is well worth to buy a few of those in bulk to have on hand. Theirs is great. Very similar ingredients to Badger. The only downfall with that one is you do have to order it. You're not going to find it at the store. You'd have to order it. You'd have to get on Thrive Market and think ahead of time. So if you have the chance to do that and you want to stock up for summer, cost-wise, efficacy, the Thrive Market brand is probably the #1 easiest one to use for everybody. But in a pinch, to find it in stores, Badger brand or Think Sport. There's also another brand called All Good that's coming up a lot more in popularity right now. I see it more on Amazon. I've seen it in a couple of stores. That would be my 4th one. So we're going Badger brand, Think Sport from the store. If you can order it, the Thrive Market mineral-based broad sunscreen is your most cost-effective for sure. And then All Good would be my 4th one. If you are somebody who doesn't want to block a whole lot, if you're trying to get a tan, or for me, I tan very easily. I rarely burn. So I don't always want a really heavy broad spectrum sunscreen. The alternative to like a tanning oil. So if you're a tanning oil person, or you're like that low SPF, like Tropicana, terrible stuff that everybody uses whenever you're at a pool or beach, you see everyone using it. If you're that person, my alternative for that is called Bronzo. I get mine on Amazon. It's pretty cost effective, but it's a carrot seed oil, which naturally has about a 15 to 20 SPF in it. It is still only going to be your SPF, so you're not broad spectrum with the carrot seed oil, but it will allow you to get some color and some tan. You still want to be mindful of your safe sun practices that we're about to talk about. Don't, allow yourself to burn with that. But if you are looking for more of a tanning kind of oil or a lower blocking, the Bronzo carrot seed oil sunscreen is amazing. It feels so good on your skin. It hydrates your skin. It smells really good. And it just gives you a little bit of protection, but still allows that tan if that's what you're looking for. So the Bronzo brand. I will make sure that I come back after and put all of these names in the chat for you as well. So don't worry about having to remember or write all of these down. But those are my favorite ones. Again, there's probably tons more, but those are the ones you're going to see the most often. You might have questions about, you're going to find them in stores. And that list of things is what I use all the time. I do want to mention, just because I've had several questions about this, I do have a couple bottles of the Alba sunscreen. It's not perfect. It's not necessarily mineral based. It's better. It doesn't have the big bad chemicals in it, but it is still more chemical based than mineral based. But it does rank a 2 on the EWG.org website. So it's not really toxic. It's certainly not your worst option, but it's another one of those that if you're in a pinch, you are going to find Alba sunscreen everywhere. Like, that is not hard to find anymore. So if everything else fails and you can't find a mineral based anywhere and you're going to have to use a chemical base, the Alba one is going to be your best bet for sure. The reason I have a couple of them is for exactly that. Like, we get somewhere, we didn't have sunscreen, and we were on vacation and we ran out of the one that I brought and I had to get something and that was the only thing I could find. That would be my go-to option in a pinch. It's much lower than the other ones, but not as good as the Badger brand or the other ones that I like. Okay, let's wrap it up with some sun-safe practices. Here's what I want you to know about sunscreen. Just like anything else that you're putting on your body, none of it is perfect. Even though the mineral-based ones and the Badger ones, the closest you're going to get to perfect ingredients, anything that goes on your skin still gets in your body and it still builds up. So you also want to try to avoid overusing sunscreen. And in fact, we know now that some exposure to the sun is good for us. It helps boost mood, helps boost immune system. It helps convert your cholesterol to vitamin D so that you get good, healthy vitamin D levels. So there needs to be some times that you're exposed to the sun without sunscreen. That is so important to be able to build those levels, but there's safe ways to do that. So the general recommendations to get enough good, healthy exposure to the sun to get the benefits without the harm is you really want to try and get 10 to 20 minutes, ideally per day. I know that's not always possible for people, which is why we supplement with vitamin D and do other things, but ideally it's 10 to 20 minutes in the kind of first morning, mid-morning sun, sometime between 10 a.m. and usually about 1 p.m. You want 10 to 20 minutes of direct exposure to your skin, as much skin exposure as you can. You want to try and get over 50% of your body exposed. So face, arms, legs, as much skin to the actual light as you can for 10 to 20 minutes until you turn a slight pink. Again, the 10 to 20 minutes is based on your skin tone. How long does it take you to turn a little pink, not red, not burnt? You want to get that clean exposure to the sun as often as you can. And then if you're going to be out longer than that 10 to 20 minutes after you've had that exposure, that's when you would want to layer on your protective, whatever it is that you choose. First layer of protection should always be covering, right? Making sure that you have like a sun cover, hats, umbrellas, finding shade. Those are always the better alternatives, even than sunscreen, right? Those are non-chemical, just shielding your body from the sun will always be your safest option. So if you have that option after having your exposure to the sun and then you're able to stay more in the shade, that would be the best and safest thing for you to do. If that's not an option because you're out somewhere, you're at a sporting event, you're at the beach, and you're still going to be in the sun, those are the times that you want to rely on your sunscreen. So not having, I know growing up, we were told, put on your sunscreen every morning before you go out, like it was part of the routine. That, in fact, is not ideal for you. You want to make sure you're getting at least a little bit of natural exposure, but being safe about it. So 10 to 20 minutes, light pink, early day sun exposure, and then you want to cover as best as you can. And when that's not an option, then you want to use the mineral-based, broad spectrum, clean ingredients, and then whatever amount of coverage you want based on that. So just being really smart and careful about how you approach the sun, because we want some, but we don't want too much. So I know that was a lot of information. Hopefully you learned something on that. I want to touch just on a couple of things for skin, like sun damage and skin damage and things you can do for that. There's a couple of things I really like that help, right? I feel like nothing fully cures it or fix it as much as we want it to. But one of the things I found very effective, I had a lot of sun damage and still do, I'm working on it on my chest from when I was younger. I just didn't take care of it. So I started doing, it's called an IPL laser. It's becoming a lot more popular as a natural way to really help with sun damage. So it brings out the the deeper layers of damage. I do mine on my chest. You can do it on your face if you want. I don't have as much sun damage on my face as I do on my chest, but it's a laser. It's warm. It doesn't really hurt. You can get it at almost any med spa or places that are doing any type of like facials and stuff. Usually they'll have a laser, but that really helps correct past sun damage. If you've later in life realized that you need to be more careful and you're making better practices, but you have some older damage that you want to get rid of, the IPL, it's called intermittent pulse laser. Amazing. I love it. It has worked really, really well, and I'm still using it to help with sun damage. And then making sure that you are using just a really good protective lotion after the fact, especially if you can get something that has peptides in it. There's a lot of different creams and lotions and things that can have those peptide base. So peptide serum really helps with sun damage and discoloration as well. So getting your hands on a safer one like that. I use the Labri one. That's my favorite one. There's also a brand called Alitura. I forgot it for a second. Alitura is another one that has like a stem cell peptide base that helps with sun discoloration. Those are my two favorites because they have clean ingredients and you're not worried about all the other things in there. But between, if you have a lot of damage that you really want to fix, the peptide serums and then using the IPL laser is going to be your best, safest, natural ways to make sure that you're getting some of that damage and discoloration and darkness out of your skin. And then moving forward, you want to protect to not get new damage. But those are things I do that I've also found effective. I've tried a lot of other things that I didn't really see much of a difference, right? There's lots of creams and things that people are saying work that I personally haven't found much benefit from, but those are two things that I have actually noticed make a difference. So I just wanted to pass that along in case you're looking for things to help reduce signs of aging and sun damage. Okay, that was a lot, but it's summertime. It's time to make decisions. It's time to be kind to our skin and our body. Go find yourself a broad spectrum mineral-based sunscreen, switch over immediately, especially if you have kids and they're wearing it all summer long. Go find some good options, order from Thrive Market, grab some Badger brand, be safe in the sun, but do not avoid it completely. Make sure you're getting enough sun exposure to help hormone balance and immune system and vitamin D and all the wonderful things that the sun is there for, but do not burn and fry. If anyone ever remembers like laying on top of tin foil with baby oil all over you. Crazy things we used to do to get a tan that we are now paying for. We no longer do that, right? We don't advocate for that, and we will make sure our children don't do that to their skins, but now we know better, so we do better. So pass that information along, make those changes, and I appreciate you guys. I hope that your weather is getting good and warm and wonderful, and that you have a very happy and healthy summer.